I think it's safe to say that change is on my agenda. Change for good. And I embrace that and I enjoy that change. I don't fear it.
Prince William had prepared himself for difficult decisions, family betrayals, and the crushing responsibility of one day wearing the crown. But nothing prepared him for the handwriting waiting inside a sealed envelope connected to his mother. When the final page was unfolded, Diana's words did not speak only about William. They named Catherine, and buried inside that private message was a request powerful enough to leave the future king torn between duty, marriage, and a promise from the past. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The room became silent the moment William realized the letter was not simply a piece of family history. It was a message that had waited years to reach him, preserved because the person who wrote it believed there would come a moment when her son would need to hear her voice again. The private meeting at Windsor had been arranged with careful attention, because the sealed personal letter, a private written message kept protected until specific conditions were met, carried emotional weight far beyond ordinary correspondence. William opened the envelope expecting memories. Instead, he found a responsibility: the Prince of Wales, the title traditionally given to the heir preparing to become king, suddenly faced words from Diana that connected his future directly to Catherine. The message revealed her final request. Catherine should help protect the emotional unity of William's family and keep compassion at the heart of the monarchy when royal duty threatened to overwhelm the people behind the crown. The prince read slowly, almost refusing to believe what he was seeing. Then he reached the line where Catherine's name appeared. His hands stopped moving. William lowered the letter and sat quietly, struggling with the realization that his mother had imagined a woman standing beside him long before that future had even existed. Catherine felt the weight immediately. She understood that Diana's words were not simply recognition or praise. They carried an expectation that reached into the most private parts of their marriage. She watched William struggle between comforting her and processing the emotion of hearing his mother speak about a life she never witnessed. The letter contained something even more unexpected. A second sealed instruction referred to a private promise Diana wanted William to consider only if he believed the monarchy had entered a moment of serious internal division. The future king realized this was not only about love or memory, it was about choices. Then William noticed something disturbing. One paragraph appeared different from the summaries previously connected to Diana's private correspondence. A section had remained hidden, creating a question that immediately changed the atmosphere around the letter. Who knew Catherine was mentioned, and why had this part remained buried? William had barely finished hearing his mother's voice through the page when the private message stopped being a memory and became a living problem inside the House of Windsor. For Catherine, the most painful part was not discovering that Diana had thought about William's future. It was understanding what the princess had feared for him. Behind the affectionate words was an unmistakable warning. Royal life could harden the people trapped inside it. Catherine suddenly found herself carrying an expectation from a woman she had never met, while William faced something equally unsettling: the possibility that his mother had understood his future loneliness better than anyone around him. Catherine carried a quiet understanding that many people around William could never fully see. She knew his life had always included an absence that could never be repaired. Diana's memory had shaped his childhood, his decisions, and even the way he approached love. The Princess of Wales, a title traditionally given to the wife of the heir to the throne, represented not only public duty, but also a powerful emotional connection that still influenced the family years later. The Princess of Wales understood that Catherine's position was unlike anyone who came before her. She was not being asked to recreate Diana's role. She was William's wife, the mother of his children, and the person expected to stand beside him as he prepared for the future. Diana's message focused less on ceremonies and appearances and more on the private character of the family William was building. William struggled with that difference. He sat with Catherine away from children, advisors, and the constant pressure of royal expectations. The prince looked at her carefully before admitting that the letter had changed something inside him. He asked himself whether Diana had seen a future he had never been able to imagine. Catherine asked the question that frightened her most. Did the letter make him see her differently? For a moment, William said nothing. The silence carried the weight of everything he had just discovered. He loved Catherine because of who she was, but Diana's words created a painful conflict. He wondered whether every choice he had made was now connected to a promise his mother had written years before. William later admitted that part of him felt comforted. Diana's hopes seemed connected to the family he had created. Yet another part of him felt trapped. The future king feared that even his greatest happiness could be interpreted as simply following his mother's final instructions, rather than making his own choices. Catherine returned to one sentence in the letter that stayed with her. The message warned William never to allow the institution to turn the woman beside him into a symbol before remembering she was a person. The institution, meaning the larger royal system of traditions, duties, and expectations surrounding the monarchy, suddenly felt less like an abstract idea and more like a personal challenge. That warning suggested Diana had expected a future moment when William's family life would collide with powerful royal demands. Catherine recognized that the message was not only about the past, it was about dangers that still existed around them. Then she asked the question William had been avoiding since the envelope was opened. Why now? Why had this letter remained sealed through years of marriage, children, royal changes, and succession planning? The answer would force William to look beyond the envelope itself and back toward one particular royal confrontation that had quietly set the entire chain of events in motion. The letter did not emerge because someone suddenly became sentimental. It emerged because something had happened inside Windsor that convinced a small circle around William that Diana's warning was no longer theoretical. The trigger came during one private family dinner, when an argument about Catherine's future role crossed an invisible line. What began as a disagreement over responsibility ended with William standing, Catherine silent, and one sentence hanging over the table like a threat. William had already begun feeling the pressure building around Catherine's position. The closer he moved toward the crown, the more people around him treated his wife's role as a solution to the monarchy's need for stability. The future king understood why continuity mattered, but he also feared something else. He feared Catherine would slowly become valued only for what she represented, rather than who she was. The Prince of Wales, a title given to the heir who stands directly behind the monarch in the line of succession, knew every decision involving Catherine carried consequences far beyond a simple schedule. His family life, his children's future, and the emotional balance of the next generation were all connected to how much pressure was placed on the woman beside him. William became increasingly protective of keeping those choices personal. He believed decisions about Catherine and their children should not be shaped only by palace expectations or the fears of those trying to protect the institution. The prince had spent years learning that public duty mattered, but he also knew private loyalty mattered just as much. The turning point came during a private Windsor family dinner. Camilla entered the conversation with a firm belief that Catherine needed to accept a larger set of formal responsibilities immediately. She argued that sacrifice was part of royal life, and that the future required everyone to carry more. Camilla, the queen consort, held a position beside the monarch that brought influence, visibility, and responsibility. She believed the demands placed on Catherine were necessary for the monarchy's strength. But William heard something different. He heard a warning sign. Catherine stayed calm throughout the exchange. She did not interrupt. She did not challenge anyone. But when Camilla described sacrifice as the price of the position, Catherine quietly placed her glass down. William noticed the small gesture instantly. His expression changed because he understood what she was not saying. Charles tried to soften the conversation. The king, as the reigning monarch who represents the continuity and leadership of the crown, wanted peace between his wife and his son. But his attempt to remain balanced frustrated William. The prince felt that protecting Catherine might eventually require him to challenge the very system he was preparing to lead. The next morning, a senior custodian connected to Diana's private materials contacted William's office through a documented account of the preserved correspondence process. The message was unexpected. The Windsor dinner had matched the condition attached to an unopened piece of Diana's correspondence. William realized the truth was even more unsettling. Someone from Diana's lifetime had anticipated a moment when pressure surrounding his future wife would become serious enough to unlock her final instruction. But once Diana's words reached the present, the disagreement could no longer remain between William and his own conscience. Because Camilla wanted to know exactly what the letter said about Catherine, William could tolerate disagreement over schedules, titles, ceremonies, and protocol. What he would not tolerate was anyone treating Diana's last private words as another piece of palace property to be managed. The confrontation came quickly. Behind a closed door, with no press officers and no advisors shaping the language, Camilla challenged the meaning being attached to the letter. William listened until Catherine's name entered the argument. Then, the future king stopped speaking like an heir and answered like a husband. The closed door changed everything. William knew this conversation could not be handled through careful statements or polite public language. The letter had moved beyond tradition. It had become connected to the person he loved and the family he was trying to protect. The prince understood that Diana's request could influence how Catherine's independence was viewed as the monarchy prepared for a new generation. Camilla wanted answers. She wanted to understand why a private message from decades earlier had suddenly become powerful enough to influence decisions about Catherine's future role. The Queen Consort, a title describing the wife of a reigning king who supports the monarch without inheriting the throne herself, believed the monarchy needed structure and preparation. She feared emotional decisions could weaken the institution she now represented. William heard the concern, but he also heard something deeper. He believed Catherine's value could not be measured only by how much responsibility she accepted. The prince had spent years watching his wife carry public expectations while protecting their family life, and he refused to allow Diana's words to become another reason for greater pressure. The meeting reached its breaking point when Camilla argued that a letter written long ago should not determine modern royal strategy. William remained silent for a moment. Then he pushed his chair back and stood. His message was clear. Catherine's well-being was not a strategy. She was not a solution to a palace problem. Charles tried to calm the situation. The king understood both sides of the conflict. He knew his wife was concerned about the future of the monarchy, but he also understood that William was reacting from a place far more personal than politics. The monarch asked his son to lower the temperature. William refused to ignore the emotional meaning behind Diana's warning. He explained that his mother's message was never about avoiding duty. It was about recognizing the moment when the crown begins asking more from a person than a family should be forced to give. Camilla then revealed something that changed the atmosphere completely. Through a documented private conversation, later recorded in palace accounts, she admitted that she had heard references to Diana's sealed letter years earlier. However, she had never known Catherine's name appeared inside it. William immediately wanted to know who else had been aware. He looked toward Charles for an answer, but the hesitation from his father carried more weight than words. The silence suggested that the letter's secrecy had been protected through careful decisions, not simple forgetfulness. The confrontation ended without a public statement, but the tension remained. William had defended Catherine in the room, but the next move would belong to her, and she was no longer willing to let others define what Diana's words required. Catherine understood the danger immediately. If she accepted Diana's request too literally, she risked becoming trapped inside someone else's legacy. If she rejected it, she feared William might hear rejection of his mother rather than rejection of the pressure surrounding her memory. So she made a careful distinction. Catherine would honor Diana, but she would not become Diana. And that quiet decision would give her more power over the crisis than any title, advisor, or palace instruction ever could. Catherine knew the position she held carried a history she could never erase. The Princess of Wales, the title traditionally connected to the wife of the heir to the throne, had always carried enormous public emotion because of Diana's unforgettable place in royal life. But Catherine understood something important. She was not stepping into someone else's story. She was building her own, while standing beside a man whose past would always shape him. The princess also understood the deeper meaning behind Diana's words. The letter was not asking William's future partner to copy a woman from another generation. It was asking that whoever stood beside him protect kindness, family loyalty, and emotional honesty when royal responsibilities became overwhelming. Those values mattered because the monarchy was not only judged by ceremonies and appearances, it was also judged by the people carrying those responsibilities. Catherine sat privately with William and finally expressed what had been weighing on her. She told the prince that she could not live as proof that Diana had predicted his future. Their marriage could not become a continuation of a relationship between William and the mother he lost. William struggled to hear those words at first. He looked hurt, because Diana's memory was one of the deepest parts of his identity. But slowly, he understood what Catherine was trying to protect. She was not pushing Diana away. She was protecting the life they had created together. The prince picked up the letter again and folded it carefully. He admitted that he had been treating Diana's request almost like an instruction. A part of him still felt that disagreeing with his mother meant failing her. Catherine reminded him that love did not require him to surrender his own judgment. Catherine then made a decision that changed the meaning of the letter completely. She suggested that they read the final sealed instruction together. She did not want custodians, courtiers, or relatives deciding what Diana's words meant for their marriage. The message belonged first to the two people living with its consequences. The final passage revealed a deeper intention. Diana wanted William to choose his family before appearances, whenever those two responsibilities came into direct conflict. She understood that public duty mattered, but she also believed the people closest to him should not be sacrificed to protect an image. William finally understood what his mother had truly left behind. It was not an order. It was a reminder of the person he wanted to become. But understanding the message was only the beginning. Acting on it would require a decision about Catherine's future workload, and the palace was already preparing for an answer that was completely different. Diana's words had finally become clear. Now William had to prove whether they would remain sentimental lines on paper or change the way he actually exercised power. The first consequence arrived without ceremony. No grand declaration, no dramatic speech. William simply walked into a scheduled planning meeting, carrying a decision nobody around the table expected him to make. Catherine's responsibilities would not be expanded according to the proposed timetable. Her family and personal well-being would come first. To several officials, it sounded like a scheduling choice. To William, it was something far more intimate, the first promise he had consciously made to Diana's letter. William knew the decision would create questions. The palace had already prepared for Catherine to accept a significantly heavier ceremonial schedule, designed to show strength and continuity around the future of the monarchy. Every appearance, engagement, and responsibility had been viewed as part of a larger plan for the years ahead. The Prince of Wales understood why those plans existed. The future royal order, the expected structure of roles, responsibilities, and succession within the monarchy, depended heavily on stability. But William now viewed the situation through the warning inside Diana's letter. He recognized how easily duty could be described as necessary until the person carrying that duty slowly disappeared behind the role. The meeting became the moment when William finally acted. He calmly explained that Catherine would decide the pace of her responsibilities alongside him. Her future would not be shaped only by institutional pressure or the fears of people trying to protect appearances. An official attempted to challenge the decision. The concern was practical, focused on schedules and public expectations. William listened carefully, then raised one hand. The discussion ended immediately. The message was simple. Catherine's limits were not an obstacle to overcome. Catherine learned about the decision afterward. She did not react because responsibilities had disappeared. She understood that royal duty would always be part of their lives. What moved her was something deeper. William had shown publicly that her well-being mattered before expectations. The princess felt the emotional weight of that choice because she knew how difficult it was for him. Every decision connected to Diana carried years of grief, love, and unresolved questions. Catherine did not want William to reject his past. She wanted him to live beyond it. Charles later asked his son a difficult question during a private conversation. Through a documented family account of their discussion, the king wanted to know whether the decision had come directly from Diana's letter. The monarch understood the importance of separating personal emotion from royal responsibility. William answered honestly. He explained that the letter did not order him to act. It reminded him what kind of man he wanted to become. The prince believed Diana's message had not given him a command. It had given him clarity. Camilla recognized the change as well. The queen consort understood that the sealed message had transformed more than William's feelings. It had changed the way he viewed leadership itself. Protecting his family was no longer separate from serving the monarchy. It had become part of how he defined duty. Yet the most important moment was still ahead. It would not happen in a meeting or an argument. It would happen when William and Catherine finally sat alone and faced the question neither had dared ask. What would Diana think of the life they had actually built? After days of palace tension, the argument fell away, leaving only a husband, a wife, a dead mother's handwriting, and a truth William had spent years avoiding. There were no officials in the room when William finally broke. No advisors, no constitutional language. No one telling him how a future king should carry grief. Catherine sat beside him as he admitted something he had rarely been able to say clearly. Loving Diana's memory had sometimes meant living beneath it. Every milestone carried the person missing from it. Every family photograph contained an absence. And now even his marriage seemed to have received one final message from her. William had carried Diana's memory through every stage of his adult life. The prince had grown into his responsibilities, while knowing that the woman who shaped his earliest years would never see the man he became. She was present in public conversations, in family memories, and in the expectations people placed around him. But she was absent from the private moments when he needed guidance the most. The weight of that absence followed him into his marriage. Catherine understood this better than anyone. She knew grief was not something that could simply disappear with time. The princess had spent years standing beside William without trying to erase his pain or compete with the memory of the woman who came before her. The quiet moment between them changed something. William admitted that the letter had frightened him because, for a brief moment, it made him feel like a child again. The future king felt the old fear return, the fear of disappointing his mother, of making a choice she might not understand, of failing to protect the values she had tried to leave behind. Catherine listened without interrupting. She knew this was not only about a document. It was about a son trying to separate love from guilt. She reached for his hand and reminded him that honoring Diana could never mean surrendering his entire adult life to expectations created by the past. William finally allowed himself to accept that truth. The prince realized that loving his mother did not require him to obey every imagined instruction connected to her memory. Diana's greatest hope was not for him to remain trapped by grief. It was for him to become someone capable of protecting the people he loved. They returned to the final lines of the letter together. The message became clearer with every word. Diana's deepest request was not that Catherine carry a specific royal mission or become a symbol of perfection. It was that William never sacrifice his family simply to appear strong. William then made a private decision. Through a documented account of the family discussion, it was revealed that he wanted the original letter protected from future disputes and political arguments. He refused to allow Diana's personal words to become a weapon inside royal conflicts. The prince understood that the true meaning of the letter belonged between him and Catherine. It would influence how he loved, how he led, and how he protected his family, but it would never replace his own judgment. For a moment, it seemed the emotional storm had finally settled. The letter had brought William peace rather than confusion. But that peace would not remain private for long. News that Diana had named Catherine inside the sealed message began moving beyond royal walls. What had started as a conversation between a mother and son was about to become a national story, and the world would reduce days of private anguish to a single extraordinary headline. By sunrise, the private letter belonged to public imagination. Diana's name was back across breakfast tables, television studios, phones, and newspaper stands. But this time, the story was not another replay of old tragedy. It connected 3 generations at once. A mother who never saw her son become a husband, a prince still carrying her loss, and Catherine suddenly placed at the emotional center of Diana's final hopes for William. The reaction was immediate and deeply divided. The public saw the letter as something more than a forgotten family message. It reshaped the way many people understood Diana's legacy, because it connected her memory directly to William and Catherine's present life. The story was no longer only about the past. It became about how the next generation of the monarchy would carry forward the values left behind by someone who never saw that future arrive. Broadcasters began debating the meaning behind the message. Some described it as a mother's final expression of hope. Others viewed it as a warning about the pressure placed on whoever stood beside the future king. The debate grew because the letter touched something deeper than royal tradition. It touched the emotional struggle between personal happiness and public expectation. William found himself uncomfortable with the attention. The prince had wanted Diana's words to remain personal, something shared between a mother's memory and the family she never fully knew. Instead, her private message had become a national conversation. He worried that people would turn Catherine into an impossible symbol rather than seeing her as a person. Catherine felt the same pressure. The princess understood why people were moved by Diana's connection to her, but she also knew admiration could become another burden. If the public expected her to perfectly represent Diana's hopes, then the very message meant to protect her could become another source of expectation. Charles watched the reaction carefully. The king recognized something powerful and complicated. Diana's influence had not disappeared with time. It continued to shape the monarchy through the choices of their eldest son. The monarch understood that William was not simply responding to an old letter. He was responding to a part of his own history. The public moment that captured the emotion came outside Kensington Palace. A small crowd gathered near the gates, as a morning newspaper carried the headline, "Diana's Final Wish for William and Catherine." Flowers began appearing beneath the gates, transforming the media attention into a public expression of remembrance and emotion. William refused calls for an immediate statement. Through a documented palace response, the prince made clear that Diana's private words would not become promotional material or a tool for public messaging. He believed some things were too personal to be turned into a royal announcement. Instead of explaining the letter, William chose silence. He knew the world wanted a statement, but he believed the true answer would not come through headlines or speeches. The world wanted William to explain what Diana had asked of Catherine, but his final answer would come not through a headline, statement, or ceremony. It would come directly to his wife. In the end, Diana's sealed letter did not change William's wife. It changed the way he understood his responsibility to her. Catherine did not inherit a command from the past, and William did not become a son forced to obey a voice preserved on paper. Instead, the letter gave him something he had struggled to find for years: permission to protect the family he has, without believing that doing so betrays the mother he lost. William finally understood what the letter truly represented. The prince realized Diana's message was never meant to control decisions from beyond her lifetime. It was a mother's attempt to protect her son emotionally, to remind him that becoming a future king should never require him to lose the people who gave his life meaning. The future king also saw Catherine's place more clearly. She was not a replacement for Diana. She was not a continuation of someone else's story. Catherine was his chosen partner, a woman with her own strength, character, and understanding of the responsibilities surrounding the crown. The crown, meaning the symbolic authority and institution of the monarchy itself, represented duty, but it did not erase humanity. William wanted Catherine to know that distinction mattered. The prince shared a private passage from the letter with her and told her something that changed everything. She did not owe Diana perfection. She did not owe the past a performance. Whatever hopes his mother carried, the life they built together belonged to them. Catherine became emotional because she understood the meaning behind those words. She knew William was not rejecting Diana. He was finally allowing himself to love his mother's memory without being controlled by it. The princess promised that she would honor Diana in the only way that felt honest, by protecting William, their children, and the warmth inside their family. The decision that followed was quieter, but equally important. William ordered the original sealed correspondence returned to protected private custody. Through a documented family record of the decision, the prince made clear that Diana's words would not become a weapon in future palace conflicts or a tool for competing interests. Camilla understood the significance immediately. The queen consort recognized that the letter had changed more than William's emotions. It had strengthened his belief that personal loyalty and family stability were essential parts of leadership. She saw that the future king would not separate compassion from duty. Charles eventually accepted his son's choice. The king understood that William was not weakening the monarchy by protecting his family. He was redefining what strength meant for the next chapter of royal life. Diana's final request did not bind Catherine to the past. It freed William from it. The prince carried forward his mother's compassion while refusing to surrender his marriage to her memory. William began this journey torn between the mother he lost and the woman beside him. He ended it understanding that there was never a choice between them. Diana belonged to the love that shaped him. Catherine belongs to the life he chose. And in finally allowing both truths to exist together, William turned a sealed letter from the past into something far greater than a royal secret, a final act of peace. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.